Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, going to be talking about the Week 1 Monday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. We do have Week 1 closing out on Monday night, and we got the Seahawks and the Broncos playing. We got Russell Wilson returning to Seattle in a little bit of a revenge game, his first game with the Broncos. It's probably not going to be the best Monday Night Football game, but still, I look forward to these Showdown slates. I look forward to watching these primetime games, and it's always fun to just, sweat NFL. So we're going to talk through this Showdown slate like we normally do. We're going to go kind of from top to bottom, just hit on the player pool, talk about all the playable options, all the guys I do have interest in for this slate. But yeah, before we get started with the breakdown, guys, as always, please hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And also, if you are new here, make sure to check out the sponsor of this video, PrizePicks. So PrizePicks, they are a player prop-based DFS site. If you have not heard of PrizePicks yet, or if you have not tried them out, definitely get over there. Make sure to sign up with promo code NOAH. When you do sign up with my promo code, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. And it's very simple. On PrizePicks, you just take a look at their projections, you take a look at the props that they have available, and if you have a lean one way or the other, you take more or less, over or under basically. They have your basic player props like passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards. They also offer fantasy score projections, so you basically can pick whether you think a guy goes over or under their fantasy score. And obviously they have fantasy scores for just about every player, most of the players. I don't know if this is their full board either. Like I think they might even add some more props for some of like the wide receiver 3s and the wide receiver 4s. They'll probably add some of those closer to the start of the game on Monday night. So you guys definitely need to be playing on PrizePicks. We're going to be talking about PrizePicks all NFL season. I do plan on making a video for this game. It'll probably be posted sometime later tonight after this video goes up. I will post my PrizePicks video talking through a couple of player props that I like for tonight's game. So definitely get over to PrizePicks, guys. Make sure that when you sign up, use promo code NOAH. You'll get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you do sign up with my promo code. But let's talk through this DraftKings Showdown slate. We're going to start off at the top of the player pool. We have Russell Wilson as our most expensive option on the slate, coming in at $11,800. Pretty expensive. If you want to play Russell Wilson in the captain, going to be $17,700 to get him in at captain. But man, like on these Showdown slates, quarterbacks are always going to be very, very safe options. They're always going to be high floor plays. It is very rare that you don't see either quarterback make the winning lineup. Like normally, I don't know the exact number, but I would say a lot of times, at least one of, if not both of the quarterbacks are going to make the winning lineup just because quarterbacks give you such a high floor. They do have, somewhat of a ceiling too. Russell Wilson, this is obviously going to be his first game with the Broncos. I think, Russell Wilson's going to have a good year for fantasy. I always thought Russell Wilson was a good fantasy quarterback. It's just that Seattle refused to let him throw the ball a ton. Like Seattle was just they were so just determined to run the ball as much as possible. Maybe with this Broncos offense, they'll let him throw the ball more. Maybe we'll see Russell Wilson, just pass the ball more this year. He still has weapons in Denver. He's pretty much going from Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. So that's really not much of a downgrade. If anything, it might even be an upgrade depending on what your opinion is on those two pairs of receivers. But he definitely has weapons in Denver. It's a good matchup too. Like Seattle last year against the pass, they were pretty bad. Overall their defense is not one that you're really scared of. Last season, Seattle did allow the second most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks. So it's a good spot for Russell Wilson. It's a revenge game too. He wants to play well here against his former team. I think he's one of the top plays on the slate. I don't know if I'd be using Russell Wilson at captain a ton, just because I think in order for Russell Wilson to be the winning captain, he's probably going to have to throw for like 3 to 4 touchdowns at least. And I would say that if he does that, there's a good chance that one of his receivers winds up being the winning captain over Wilson. So at that expensive price tag, I don't think I'd be playing Wilson at captain a ton, but I do like him as a flex play. I think he is just one of the safer plays on the board. Then you got Javonte Williams at $10,200. I think Javonte Williams will probably be a fairly low-owned option. Obviously, on a Showdown slate, Javonte Williams is going to get ownership, but I don't think he's going to be like 60-70% owned. I think he'll be like 20 to 30%, just because he does have a pretty high price tag at $10,200. He's more expensive than all the receivers. He's more expensive than the other quarterback in this game that we'll talk about. He's probably going to have a workload split between him and Melvin Gordon. Last year, we saw that pretty much be the case. It was kind of like a 50-50 split. They both got the exact amount of carries last year. Both Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon finished the season with 203 rushing attempts. So maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's 60-40 favoring Javonte, maybe it's 70-30 favoring Javonte. I think most weeks Javonte is going to be the favorite to lead the two in touches. But the Broncos, they did say that they're going to ride the hot hand. If one of the running backs gets on a roll and just starts getting off a bunch of big runs, they're going to ride the hot hand. So it's a tough situation with the Broncos backfield. This was a situation that I really didn't do much of in DFS last year. Like whenever the Broncos were on the slate, I rarely played Javonte or Melvin Gordon. I know the 1 week I did play Javonte was when Melvin Gordon was out, and I'm pretty sure Javonte went nuts that week. I think it was this game against Kansas City. But yeah, at 10,200, I mean, Javonte has upside. He's a good running back. He can catch passes out of the backfield. I just think at that price tag, you're really going to have to run hot for him to justify that price tag. He's either going to have to get into the end zone at least once or twice, or maybe he gets more work than we're expecting, but I think it is going to be a split between him and Gordon. I think if Gordon gets hot and starts breaking off long runs, they could even lean on Gordon more than they do Javonte. Tough situation there with the Denver backfield, one that I probably will be avoiding on the Showdown slate, but in tournaments, if you wanted to pay up for Javonte just to be a little bit different, obviously there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, no one would be surprised if Javonte had a big game tonight. I just don't think that's something that I'm going to be doing personally, especially if I was only playing one lineup on the Showdown slate. I don't think Javonte would make my one lineup. But then you got the receivers. You got Courtland Sutton at 9,400. Obviously with Russell Wilson at quarterback, this is definitely a big-time quarterback upgrade for Courtland Sutton. Denver's never really had a good quarterback. I mean, last season, they obviously didn't really have much good quarterback play. I think it's a good spot for Courtland Sutton this year. I know he's a guy that a lot of people are expecting to kind of have a breakout year this year. And he should be I would expect he's the wide receiver 1 for the Broncos. I assume he'll probably lead the team in targets by the time the end of the year is over with. There's been reports that Russell Wilson and Courtland Sutton have kind of been or Russell Wilson's kind of go-to guy so far has been Courtland Sutton, just kind of in practice and stuff. So at 9,400, I think Courtland Sutton's a very solid option on the Showdown slate. He is kind of expensive. He's more expensive than every other receiver in this game, but if Russell Wilson's going to lock in on Courtland Sutton like he's supposedly been doing, then we could definitely see him get 8, 9, 10 targets here. He's a guy that has a lot of upside. He's a talented receiver, and he's finally got a good quarterback that he can throw the ball to him. So definitely have interest in Courtland Sutton on this slate. Geno Smith, I think, is a very solid option, and I'm not saying Geno Smith is going to come out here and put up a huge game, but he's only $8,600, and it is very rare on these Showdown slates to find quarterbacks this cheap. Not often do you find quarterbacks below 9K. Just because quarterbacks, they offer the highest floor on the slate, it's really rare to see them this cheap. Geno Smith, he did make 3 starts last year for Seattle. This game against the Rams, I'm pretty sure that was the game that Russell Wilson got injured in, so that was actually not a full game for Geno Smith, but Geno Smith did start 3 full games last year, had 11, 11, and 22 Draftkings points. This is a game where you expect the Seahawks to probably be trailing and probably going to be forced to throw. Right now, Seattle, they are 6.5-point dogs. I know Seattle, they are a team that wants to run the ball a ton, but I don't know if they're going to have much success running the ball here. I think Seattle's running game is definitely going to be a big question this year. I mean, in general, Seattle's just going to be a bad team. Their offense is going to be bad. But I do expect this to be a spot where Geno Smith probably is forced to throw a little bit more. There definitely could be, game script could force them to throw more, and he's $8,600. He's also got rushing upside too, which it's hard to find. It's hard to find quarterbacks this cheap on Showdown slates that even offer rushing upside, which Geno Smith does have. So yeah, I think Geno Smith's actually a pretty solid play. I think he's a very safe option. I think he's a high floor play for his salary. I think he offers a higher floor than the receivers do, but I definitely think that the receivers offer just bigger ceilings. So in cash games, I probably would be playing Geno Smith in cash as a flex option. In tournaments, maybe you could justify getting away from him, but I think he is a very safe play at that salary. And then you got DK Metcalf as the next option, 8,400. Obviously, not a great situation for DK Metcalf this year with Geno Smith at quarterback. But last year when Geno Smith did play in those, I think it was the 3 games that Geno Smith did play in. I mean, DK saw 7, 5, and 6 targets. He was pretty solid. I mean, 11, 17, and 22 Draftkings points in the 3 games with Geno Smith last year. Obviously, DK Metcalf is a freak. I mean, he's an athletic freak. He's massive. He's got a ton of speed. He's just a mismatch. No matter what corner that Denver throws on DK, it's probably going to be a mismatch. So I think just banking on the talent of DK, just banking on the raw upside that he has makes a lot of sense here. Obviously, the quarterback play is a bit questioned, but at 8,400, I mean, we know DK has big play upside. He has slate-breaking upside. I would assume he comes in with a little bit less ownership than probably the Broncos receivers do. I would assume that Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy come in a little bit higher than DK Metcalf in terms of ownership. I do like DK Metcalf quite a bit on this slate. He might be my favorite wide receiver out of all of them. Just going to bank on the talent of DK and the upside that he has here, even though, again, the quarterback play might be a little suspect. But then you do have Jerry Jeudy at 8,200. Jerry Jeudy, another guy that should have a really good year this year, finally has a good quarterback that can throw the ball to him. Volume should be solid. I would assume that Courtland Sutton probably leads this team in targets, as we mentioned, but Jeudy should be looking at probably 6-7 targets a game, at minimum. Judy's another young guy with talent. He's got big play upside. He's a quick receiver. He's so far in the NFL. I mean, he hasn't shown a ton, but again, he's had really poor quarterback play. Now he's finally got a good QB that can get him the ball. I think Jeudy might be my least favorite of all the receivers in this game, but I definitely think he's still in play. I have no issues going there. Then you got Rashad Penny at 7,800. So Rashad Penny probably will be kind of the workhorse back for Seattle. I do worry, though, about game script here because Rashad Penny is a guy that the Seahawks have rarely used in the passing game. If you just look at his targets per game last season, he was barely targeted. I mean, he only saw, 6 targets all season through however many games he played. That's definitely a concern, and this could be a game where Seattle does get behind. As we mentioned, Seattle, they're 6.5-point dogs here. They could be down 2 touchdowns heading into halftime, and I would not be surprised. And if that's the case, we could see Rashad Penny kind of just cut out of the game plan. He was an efficient runner last year. He did have a lot of games where he rushed for over 100 yards. I think he's more of a contrarian play on this slate. I think the opportunity will be there if the Seahawks can keep this game close, but I do worry a lot about this, Seattle getting behind and then Rashad Penny just kind of get, game script kind of forcing him off the field, and maybe we see more of like a Travis Homer. So Penny's definitely a risky option. He does offer some upside if he can get into the end zone, but I think with his inability to, or with the little involvement he has in the passing game, it's hard for him to really put up a big ceiling on DraftKings unless he just gets the 100-yard bonus or he gets into the end zone once or twice, which again is possible. He did it before. He did it last year. He did it multiple times last year. But I'm not too interested in Penny on the slate. Melvin Gordon at 7,400. I mean, he's going to be splitting touches with Javonte Williams. The price tag's not too high, but I mean, paying this price tag for Melvin Gordon does feel like a little bit of an overpay. I think you're just kind of hoping that he gets into the end zone. I think in order for him to pay off this price tag, it's going to be hard for him to get there on just yards and receptions. He probably will get some involvement in the passing game. He'll probably see 2 to 3, maybe 4 targets. He'll probably get 10 to 12 carries. He's going to have to get into the end zone, I think, to justify 7,400. There's obviously a chance that if Denver gets near the goal line, maybe they let Melvin Gordon punch it in instead of Javonte. I mean, we just don't really know. But this price tag on Melvin Gordon doesn't make him really stand out to me. Tyler Lockett at 7K, I think is a pretty solid option here. It's definitely a little bit underpriced. Now, last season with Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett was not as involved as DK Metcalf was. At least the volume wasn't as consistent. In the 3 games with Geno Smith last year, Tyler Lockett saw 7 targets, 3 targets, and then he had that one game against Jacksonville where he saw 13 targets. He had 5, 3, and 29 DraftKings points. Tyler Lockett, he has to be the most boom-bust wide receiver I think I've ever seen. I legit feel like Tyler Lockett either scores 30 fantasy points or he scores 2 fantasy points. There's legit no in-between. He had some games last year where he scored 10 to 12, but I mean, you look at it, 29, 34, and then 7, 6, 10, 5, 3, and then 29, 4, 18, and then 12, 19, 30, 6. He's a boom-bust option, but the volume should be there. I mean, Geno Smith's going to have to throw the ball to somebody, and I think Lockett and Metcalf are clearly the 2 best options for him to throw the ball to. And again, if Seattle, if they get behind in this game, which is pretty likely, we could see them forced to throw the ball more, to air it out more. At 7K, I mean, Tyler Lockett, we know he's got that ceiling. We've seen him put up 30-plus DraftKings points game. Obviously, without Russell Wilson, that ceiling might not be, the floor is definitely really low without Russell Wilson, but the ceiling is still there just because Tyler Lockett can break off those long touchdown catches. And the price tag on him at 7K is not super high. He's a lot cheaper than Jeudy, than Metcalf, than Sutton is. So I do have a good amount of interest in Tyler Lockett, kind of as a cheaper receiver option with some upside. Then you got Noah Fant at 6,200. I mean, Noah Fant should see good volume in the Seattle offense. He's probably going to be 3rd on the team in targets behind DK and Tyler Lockett. They do still have Will Dissly on the roster, and I think Will Dissly will be involved as their other tight end. But they could run a lot of 2 tight end sets. They might even line up Noah Fant as kind of a receiver at points, or at some points in the game. Not really sure. is 6,200. I think he's closely priced enough to lock it that I would just rather play Lockett. But Fant's a fine play. I mean, it is a revenge game for him. He probably gets like 5 to 6 targets. I think in order for him to justify this price tag, he's probably going to have to get into the end zone. I think you're much more likely to, like, if one of these guys, whether between Lockett or Fant, if you had a gun to my head, like which one is more likely to put up 100+ yards, it's definitely Lockett. So I think I'd rather go to Lockett between the two. But I mean, Fant is still playable. I don't have an issue going there. And then looking at some of the value on the slate, I mean, value is not the best. You do have Albert O, who will be the starting tight end for Denver, obviously with Noah Fant no longer on the roster. You know, competing with Courtland Sutton and Jared Jeudy for targets is not great. Like, I think Albert O probably gets like 4 or 5 targets a game, maybe like 3 to 4. Another guy that's probably going to have to get into the end zone to really be worth rostering. I think it's unlikely that he puts up like double-digit DK points without getting a touchdown. But he's a big body. He's a guy that Russell Wilson could look to near the red zone and, you know, potentially could get a touchdown. He's a fine, cheap play. Only 5K. He does offer some upside if he can, you know, find pay dirt. So at 5K, I have no issue going to Albert O. The Broncos defense, I mean, I tend to avoid defenses on showdown slates, and I know lately the defenses have been going off. Like, I know the Rams defense went off on the Thursday night game. I know the Buccaneers defense did great on Sunday night. I tend to avoid defenses, though, on Showdown just because they do tend to be over-owned, and defense scoring is just so tough to predict. Like, defenses can put up 20 fantasy points any night. They can also put up 2 fantasy points any night. I mean, obviously, with the Broncos going up against Geno Smith, I'm sure the Broncos are probably going to be able to force some turnovers. They might be able to get some sacks as well. 4,800 though for a defense, like I would rather play a receiver. Like, I feel like receivers always offer more upside than defenses, even if it is like an Albert O or a KJ Hamler. Like, I think I'd roster those guys over defenses. I personally tend to not play defenses too much in showdown slates. Maybe this is a spot where the Broncos defense does really well, but I don't think I'm going to be going to them a ton. You do have KJ Hamler at 4,400, who should be the wide receiver 3 for Denver. He is questionable for this game, so keep an eye on this injury news. But I would think Hamler's going to play. I haven't seen like any word about him being like truly in question. It seems like he's kind of leaning more towards playing than not. But he is coming back from an ACL injury, so this will be something to monitor. If KJ Hamler is active though, and, you know, assuming there's like no limits or anything, he should operate as the wide receiver 3 for Denver behind Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. So at 4,400, I would think he gets, you know, decent playing time. I would think he probably sees at least a couple targets. He's a very speedy receiver, so he does offer some big play upside if he can, you know, get loose down the field, break off a long touchdown. I mean, he's got some good upside at this price tag. You know, he might not see a ton of targets, maybe only like 4 to 5 or, you know, 3 to 4, but at 4,400, if we're kind of looking for some value with upside on this slate, I do really like KJ Hamler as a value play with upside. I would definitely rather roster him over like the defenses. I'd rather roster him over the kickers, especially in tournaments. Now the kickers, they are always like safe plays. Like, the kickers are pretty good to give you 6 to 8 DraftKings points almost any game. We've also seen the kickers have some good games before. Like, kickers sometimes will make the winning lineup, and there will definitely be games where a kicker puts up like 15 or 16 DraftKings points. But I would say more times than not, kickers are going to end with like 6 to 10 DK points, which at their price tag is fine. They're definitely safe options. I don't think their ceiling is nearly as high as like receivers' ceiling are. But I have no issue going to either kicker. I usually don't play both kickers in the same lineup. It's very rare that you do see both kickers make the winning lineup. So if I had to roster one of the 2 kickers, I would, you know, limit it to one and not play both. Seahawks defense, not probably going to go there. I mean, they're playing at home. I'm sure the crowd's going to be fired up going up against, you know, Russell Wilson. But Russell Wilson's not a guy that really turns the ball over much. He's, you know, he always used to take a lot of sacks just because of how bad Seattle's offensive line was. But maybe now in Denver, Russell Wilson will be able to get more time to throw. I don't think I'd be playing the Seahawks defense personally. Marquise Goodwin, I mean, I think he's like the wide receiver 4 for Seattle. I think he's behind D. Eskridge on the depth chart, so he's just a dart throw. Kenneth Walker is questionable, so this will be something to monitor. If he does play, I'm assuming he's going to be kind of the number 2 back behind Rashad Penny. Now, how much is Kenneth Walker going to be involved? You know, if he does play, is he going to be 100% healthy? We don't really know. I think he's kind of leaning more towards doubtful. I don't think he really practiced at all week, so Kenneth Walker's probably not going to play, which, you know, does help Rashad Penny a little bit, but I do still expect a guy like Travis Homer to be involved in passing situations. And this is a guy that I kind of have some interest in as like a dart throw. I don't think his ownership really gets that high. I don't think really anyone goes there. And if by some chance, which is pretty likely, if by some chance Seattle does get down in this game, like let's say at halftime Seattle's down 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, we could see a lot of Travis Homer in the second half if Seattle's just playing catch up and they're passing a lot, because Homer is the guy that is going to be out there to catch passes. I mean, he's a pretty good receiving back. Clearly, as we mentioned earlier, they don't really involve Rashad Penny much in the passing game. At only $1,400, I mean, it doesn't take much for Travis Homer to pay off this price tag. If he gets a couple catches, like let's say he gets maybe 3 carries for 10 yards and 3 catches for 30 yards, I mean, that's 7 DraftKings points. Because obviously with DraftKings full PPR scoring, getting these guys that can catch 3, 4, 5 balls is always really valuable, and especially at this really cheap price tag. So if I'm looking for just kind of a dart throw, a punt option, I do have a good amount of interest in Travis Homer. And then I did want to mention D. Eskridge, because I think D. Eskridge is actually on the depth chart. He's the wide receiver 3 for Seattle. So he'll be kind of the number 3 guy behind DK and Tyler Lockett. Now, clearly, they're going to involve Noah Fant some. They're going to involve Goodwin a little bit. They might even involve Will Dissly some. But I think Eskridge will get some playing time. I think he'll probably play on, if I had to guess, probably 50, 60% of the snaps. He's only 1K. Obviously, the quarterback play is a little bit of an issue. I mean, Eskridge really has shown no upside throughout his NFL career. He's probably going to have to get into the end zone to really justify. Well, I guess he could catch 3 or 4 passes. I would say that's pretty unlikely though. I think 2, 3, 4 targets is probably what you're expecting for Eskridge. Probably 2 to 3. You just got to hope that he gets into the end zone. But if he's going to play 50 to 60% of the snaps, if he's going to be the wide receiver 3 for Seattle, I think he's going to be on the field enough to warrant rostering at $1,000. I mean, at this price tag, it's not hard for him to really justify worth rostering at this salary. So if you are looking for a punt option, if you're looking for a couple punt options, I do like Travis Homer, just kind of hoping that Seattle is forced to throw, which takes Penny off the field, could allow for more Travis Homer to get on the field. And then D. Eskridge, if he is technically the wide receiver 3, if you pull up the DraftKings depth chart, they have D. Eskridge as the wide receiver 3 on the DraftKings depth chart. So if D. Eskridge is the wide receiver 3 for Seattle, if he plays on 50% of the snaps, let's say, if he's their slot wide receiver, then yeah, he could definitely just be on the field enough, could maybe get 3 or 4 targets, and that really is all that he needs to be worth rostering at $1,000. But that's probably it for the DK player pool. I don't think there's really anyone else down here that I'm going to consider. Will Dissly might get some playing time. You might see Seattle run some 2 tight end sets. He's just like a touchdown or bust play. That's it for this showdown slate, I think. We covered pretty much all the playable options. So that's what I got for Monday Night Football, guys. Denver and Seattle. Hopefully we get a good game tonight. The primetime games lately have not been the best. Especially that Sunday night game was just terrible between the Cowboys and Bucks. Hopefully this game is close, though, and it's worth watching. But yeah, guys, that's what I got for this showdown slate. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, I appreciate you watching. Hit that like button if you did enjoy. Hit that subscribe button again if you have not yet. We'll be making DFS content all throughout the NFL season. Monday night, Thursday night, we're going to cover the showdown slates. We're going to have a video up for the full Sunday main slate. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we will be covering Prize Picks all season. Prize Picks, they are the sponsor of this video. You can check them out. Link down below in the description, or just when you sign up for Prize Picks, make sure to use promo code NOAH, so that way you get your first deposit matched up to $100. You can take a look at what props Prize Picks has available right now for this Monday night game. I would say they're probably going to add a couple more props as we do get closer to kickoff. So take a look at their full board, see what stands out to you. If you have any bets you want to make, again, you're just picking a guy. If you think they're going to go over or under, take more or less on their fantasy score, on their receiving yards, rushing yards, whatever it may be. You can check out all the props that Prize Picks has available. And if you want a couple of my favorite plays for this game, I will be posting a video later to my channel, probably an hour or 2 after this video goes up. I will post my Prize Picks video talking through a couple plays I like for tonight's game. So check that out if you are interested, guys. Make sure to sign up though for Prize Picks and use code NOAH when you do sign up. As always, appreciate Prize Picks sponsoring these videos. But good luck to you all. Wish you the best of luck on this Monday night slate, and we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.